Garrett, the Big 12 odds from Circus Sports. I'm not sure if anyone has seen this. This is initially there was an odds that were put up from the Big 12 that were all out of whack, and it just didn't make much sense. And so somebody directed me. This is Circus Sports. It's a gambling business. Here are the odds in the Big 12 to win it, not to finish third, fifth. This is to win the championship. Oklahoma at the top, Texas number 2. Baylor at 3, Oklahoma State 4, Iowa State, then Kansas State. Kansas State in the other one was way down, like at number 8. TCU Tech, West Virginia, who was way up in the other one, at 9, and KU at the bottom at plus 27,000.
And I'm putting all my money into KU. And then I'm going to buy my ski chalet.
Just like the Kentucky Derby horse,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. No, I mean, I'm not surprised to see Texas there. It happens all the time. And look, they might be a lot better. And again, I'm going to make this point is not to pile on them, but I think these expectations are just not fair for them. I mean, I don't think they're coming from Steve Sarkisian. I don't think they're coming from Texas itself, really. It's just coming from, it's kind of the lazy thing, like, oh, Texas has to be good eventually. Well, let them get there, and then we can talk about it. Oklahoma, everything's going to be new there. So, I mean, to me, I just kind of lean towards Baylor and Oklahoma State, both returning a bunch of people, and from the teams that played in the championship game last year. Oklahoma's had a lot of turnover, so it wouldn't surprise me to see them take a dip, not a big one, but a little bit, where they might lose another game or so that they didn't last year. But again, this is the offseason, and that's why you wildly speculate.
That's interesting to see. I don't know what that first list looked like that you're referring to. What was so out of whack about it?
They had Oklahoma plus 150, Texas 225, so they were 1 and 2. Oklahoma State was next, West Virginia 4. Of course, the transfer quarterback maybe has something to do with that, JT Daniels. Baylor 5, Iowa State, TCU, Kansas State down at 8, Texas Tech and Kansas. It was the differences. It was like big, huge gaps in that first one. But this one seems to have, not because of anything where Baylor is or West Virginia is, it seems to be a little bit more cohesive of what most people would think. And again, these are the odds they're trying to make you bet or get you to bet on what is out there.
Man, I'm an Oklahoma fan, but I'm not as sold on year one with Venables as everybody else seems to be. A lot of people seem to think that they're just going to not, drop off or miss a lick, and I'm not totally convinced of that. I mean, I think there's been kind of this almost bulletproof nature about them now for quite a while, where it's very rare to see them drop a conference game, right? It's very rare to see them even lose to their rivals very often, and that's just been kind of the MO, and every year it's just, hey, I can't believe, how do you not vote OU number 1 every single year? Last year, seem to recall a national, reporter, knocking those who didn't pick Oklahoma to win the conference last year. What happened? I don't know if he had a follow-up article on that. I doubt that he did. But it is kind of the default thing to do, and it's default to put Texas at number 2 because, like Paul said, eventually they're going to be right. It's just that it doesn't mean as much when you've been doing it for 15 years in a row and you've been right like twice by doing that, So I understand the hype, but again, it's an off-season poll. I think to not have Baylor or Oklahoma State right there at the top, I think would be a mistake, because I think that both of those teams are going to be really good. And given where they were last year, I understand that UT and OU had their issues that are hopefully corrected for them, but Baylor and Oklahoma State are out there getting better as well. I mean, they're not just sitting on their hands going, well, we had the team we had last year and we'll just be that. I mean, no, they're both getting better too. So I think it's very interesting to see kind of the way some people are going the same old, let's just assume it's Oklahoma and let's put Texas there and maybe we'll be right this time. And there's those that are like, hey, watch out for Baylor and Oklahoma State. I think you got to watch out for K-State. I think that Iowa State's getting a whole lot of just quiet time right now where there's not a lot of hype, and that's probably what's best for them after last year. So it's a very interesting year for the conference. If people want to make a big deal out of the odds, that's entirely up to them. I don't try to get too out of whack about that, because I understand that they're there in part to get people kind of crazy and also to spend their money in Vegas on these odds. But that's interesting. It's interesting, and it's interesting to see just kind of how all over the place people think the conference is as far as the top.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting on Oklahoma in that the reason that it's easy to pick them number 1 every year was because they had, of all the rest of the teams in the conference, they had 0 turnover or there was no tumultuous offseason for them. You know, the biggest thing that happened for them was Bob Stoops left and Lincoln Riley stepped in, but it was the most seamless transition possibly in the history of college football coaching. I mean, it just worked, and it worked right away because Lincoln Riley was the guy who he is on the rise at the time, and this is a lot different. This isn't just, they've got another guy from the Stoops tree. Well, he hasn't been there in a decade or so almost. It's been a long time since Brent Venables was there. He's not been a head coach before, so there's going to be, I'm sure, a little bit of a learning curve for him on that. They're installing a new offense, although it's similar, and half their team transferred out, and they have new players in. There's a lot of things that don't normally happen to Oklahoma in the offseason that happened to them this offseason. So to me, while I think it would, Dylan Gabriel's a good quarterback and there's a lot of good things they have going on, let's just see how it all meshes together for the first time.
Yeah, and putting them there, it's not like there's, it's really enticing people to bet. You're not going to make much money off of them. Yeah. It's a safe bet to make, and I understand why. They've ruled the conference, they've ruled the roost, but I had the same questions. It's like, he's a head coach for the first time. I don't care how prepared he is. Like, you don't know how that's going to go. I understand. Well, Lebby and Gabriel, they did this thing, 2 years ago. Okay, well, it's different though. Like, is Dylan Gabriel going to be healthy all year? Like, there's question marks. So they're going to be really good. And obviously, I'm a fan, but I do have my questions about them. I don't think it's just automatic that they're the best team, but there seem to be quite a few people that do. So, it'll be fun to see that actually out on the field.
I do have one of the college